Yeah,
Yeah, we have it.
excellent. Well,
Okay.
let's just pretend those 8 minutes didn't happen.
That's good. That's good. Um, so just gonna do the whole show business of all of this, and then I'll just go and edit the recording later.
Yeah, yeah. Fix it in post, right?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Ponley. I'm the co-founder of Ankara Circle, and today I'm here with Simon Kewin. He's the winner of the Editor's Prize that we had for the recent Tales by Moonlight contest. Hi Simon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm delighted to be here as well. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
So, your story, The Clockwork King, was incredible. It's kind of about a knight of a religious institution who kind of gets into trouble with his organization and goes on a whole really beautiful journey of like self-discovery and discovery about life and a lot of things. So I don't want to like give too much details and like spoil the story for people who haven't read it, but can you like tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, of course. So I live in the UK, in England. I'm originally from a small island in the Irish Sea that no one's ever heard of. But it's kind of, I grew up with lots of sort of Viking and Norse and Celtic stories, so
Yeah,
that feeds into the Clockwork King, I guess. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm a writer and a software developer living in England these days. So
yeah. That's awesome. So how did you like get into writing, or like what was your motivation?
I I was one of the I'm one of those people who, like, when I was a teenager, I was like just reading Asimov books one a day, and just I always knew that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
I always wanted to be a fantasy or a science fiction writer, and I always
yeah,
knew at some point I would. And then I got to a certain age, I got to like 30, and I was like, well, if I don't do it now, I never will. So
yeah,
I just started writing short stories, and then you know they turned into longer stories, and they turned into novels, and
yeah.
so it goes.
So what's that like, process been like of like starting out like writing and because it definitely takes a lot of discipline to write because I'm also a writer myself and
Sure.
keeping that practice is a lot more difficult than like most people think. So how do you for the most part like, come up with a story and like actually write and like see it through to its like completion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like exercise. I always think, when you first, if you're going to the gym or you're doing running or something, you can do like 5 minutes and you're exhausted the first day.
Yeah.
But slowly, it's like a muscle. You kind of build it up, and it suddenly somehow becomes easier. So I was counting up before. I've written 12 novels now, um, and I remember thinking when I started my first one, I have no idea how someone can write this much text.
Yeah.
How can you write all that? How can you write 100,000 words, whatever it is? But you just write one sentence at a time and keep doing it, and eventually you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, as to motivation, it's difficult because we all have busy lives and jobs and families and whatever it is. So, um, and sometimes I'll be honest, I must have given up writing 30 times at least,
Yeah.
because I'm not getting anywhere, and it's just like, oh, I couldn't be bothered. I'll do something
Yeah.
else with my life. But I just love doing it. I mean, I just love the process of it, and I've got to the point where I just I just have to do it because it brings me joy, really. So I do it, and then any success that comes along, like this incredible award which came out of the blue,
Yeah.
just makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah, that sounds good. It sounds very familiar to me because it's kind of like the same thing because I'm also an engineer myself. So,
okay,
when like work is like pretty hectic or like life is pretty hectic, those things, writing definitely tends to fall more by the wayside than I'd like to happen, but
yeah,
it is something that you just like keep finding yourself coming back to, especially if like you're someone who constantly like has stories in their head or is like a storyteller
oh
and
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So, um, so about like Clockwork Orange, I know you mentioned like lots of like the Nordic or like Gaelic like motivations for your story. So how did that tie into like the world building of like Clockwork King? Like how did you come up with the concept of the religion and the homunculi in the story?
Um, it's a good question. I very often find that stories are triggered in my brain by just a word or a phrase I hear. So sometimes I'll just hear a phrase on the television or the radio.
Hmm.
And in this case, the word was the one you just used, homunculi,
Yeah.
or homunculus, I think it was at the time. Um, I just it just sort of fascinated me to think what was an homunculus, and I sort of I knew roughly what the word meant, but I
Yeah.
started thinking about them, and then the phrase "three miraculous homunculi" just came into my head. I mean, I don't know why, but that's what the story was called when I was writing it.
Yeah.
Um, and it just grew from there, really. And I just thought, well, okay, why would there be three of these manufactured beings, and what would be the?
Hmm.
And then the idea came of, well, somebody started making a wooden one, and then things developed from there. Again, without giving too much away,
Yeah.
there was a sort of technological advancement. And then I guess, I mean, I don't. Given that this is a fantasy story, I don't really
Hmm.
want to talk about how the real world impinges on it. I guess, but there must have been stuff going on in the world
Yeah.
where I was thinking about how any organization, religious or otherwise, can sometimes take people's thinking over and sort of
Hmm.
control what they think is real or true. So I was thinking about something like that, and the religion I put in it is completely made up.
Yeah.
It's not linked to any past or present religion. But I just like the idea of these people saying, these homunculi, that these manufactured people are an abomination. They must be destroyed,
Hmm.
which is kind of the setup for the story, because they're evil and they're demons and all the rest of
Yeah.
it. And just tried to bring that to life, really, because the hero, kind of goes, "Are they though?" Just
Yeah.
kind of explores the world and finds out what's been going on, really.
Yeah, and I feel like that's usually a theme for a lot of stories. Like as much as we try to create these worlds that are like divested from like our regular reality, I think it's very difficult to write a story without drawing like parallel themes between like that and what we see either in like current day or we've seen like historically, definitely like religious um kind of like extremism and that very strong belief that things that don't ascribe to a certain way of view are abominations, something we do see like in our
Mm.
society like over and over again.
Yeah,
And it's actually funny if we did like create sentient like artificial life, I think there would be parts of humanity that are like that's about an abomination. So that was
yeah.
like fun to read. I think for me, a part I really enjoyed about the story was like here, like Sigmund's like journey through his own journey of like exploration and like self discovery. And um, I think like the way you wrote him, I don't know, like it seemed like he always had like doubts or like that, sort of like open mind compared to like other people. So what was like your motivation for like Sigmund, or like you know, how did you come up with the character of the hero in that story?
It's a good question. I mean, I suppose in order to have a story, you've got to have a character who is, interested in changing the world in some way. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's going to be quite a boring story. So I needed him to not just accept his fate and then spend the rest of his life, toiling away in the whatever it was he was doing. So he
Hmm.
needed to be someone who um, questioned how the world worked a bit and was prepared and was, brave and prepared to take things as he found them, rather
Yeah.
than just accepting the world as he'd been told about. But his background comes into it as well. I mean, his
Yeah.
his mother is kind of a presence in the story. She's not in it very much, but she'd suffered at the hands of the sort of oppressive regime
Yeah.
that there is. Um, and so I wanted him to be someone, because I mean that's a familiar story in the world, right? A sort of strong woman who basically fixes the world.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we see that everywhere. And although the protagonist is a male, he's has a big lesson to pay, a big debt to pay to his mother, who's taught him to think for himself, basically, and stand up for himself. And so although he does suffer and he does doubt himself, he he goes out into the world on this quest and finds out for himself what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the pretext, really. And the thing I really love writing about it, I mean, I loved writing Sigurd, but at one point, without giving too much away, at one point we meet one of the homunculi, right?
Yeah. Borealis. Yeah.
Borealis Vanderwar. So he or it was the most fun to write.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character in it.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
Yeah,
he was mine too. Yeah. I
yeah,
enjoyed
he's just a cool guy.
his yeah, very unique worldview and sort of
Yeah,
like inner peace that
yeah,
is very difficult to find in people. And that was good to see. I definitely was not expecting that
good.
character.
Well,
Yeah.
that was yeah,
Yeah.
that was the hope, really. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, to be fair, I can't remember what was going on in the world at the exact time I wrote the story. I mean, probably something bad, right? That's what's
Yeah.
normally going on in the world. So I guess I was fantasizing over having a wise. Is he a machine? I don't know what he is, but
Yeah.
whatever he is, someone wise and considerate and careful, and
Hmm.
just thinking, yeah, this is what we should do, and yeah, okay, let's do that. How
Yeah.
nice that would be at
Yeah.
because the world does not
It's
seem
not
that a
like
lot
that.
recently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, so one of the things like I also, I'm interested when I like read people's stories is sometimes the more like technical like aspects of writing. So I know like for you to create a story, yes, you have to have like the imaginative mind, but you also have to have like, grammar and like technicality down and certain like story structures and um a cadence to like the way you write and create a plot and execute that in the story.
Yeah.
So for you, do you have like I know there's like the three arc plots and a lot of like literary devices people use to like create their stories, but do you have any that you particularly like use in yours?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't think I did at the time. I think I've, as it happens, I've just completed an MA in creative writing.
Yeah,
So now I know.
congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm just
Yeah,
waiting for my final marks, so I don't know how
yeah.
well I've done. Um, so I know much more now about the kind of theoretical underpinnings and the structural underpinnings that there might be to a story.
Yeah.
But I, I mean, I think that I just wrote the story as I wanted to write it. Really, I just let it breathe and be,
Mhm.
because I think we've all read and maybe written so many things, right? We just kind of know how stories work. And despite the fact that I've just completed an MA, ironically, I sort of feel you don't need to be taught how to write, because although you can learn certain techniques and certain
Yeah.
skills and certain terms that help you explain what you're doing, really
Hmm.
it's an intuitive thing, I think. So you sort of know when you want to interleave moments of drama and high stress with sort of gentler, calmer moments,
Yeah.
like a piece of music, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sort
Yeah.
of weave in the ups and downs of a dramatical story, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
that's true.
and I do often, I mean, I'm not a musician. I wish I were a musician, but I often think of writing a good story as being like a piece of music or an album or something. Because
Yeah.
if you listen to a good album, you get that flow of excitement and then reflection, and
Hmm.
that's what I try to recreate, really. But always building towards a crescendo as well. So,
Yeah.
did I
Yeah.
answer the question? I'm not sure I did.
You haven't. You have. I mean, yes, yes.
Oh,
In
what was the
a
question
way.
again?
Huh?
What was the question again?
I think it was about literary devices, and I think you did well in like answering, at least it seems like, or what I took from it is like your technique is more intuitive one based on like stories around us, and like because there's stories in everything, like humanity, is stories, like our history and even the way we like build up the world. I think the shared consciousness that we all live in is based off stories. Like countries are
Mm.
stories, cities are
Yeah, I
stories,
agree.
places are
Yeah,
stories. So
yeah,
I think in a certain sense, like, we are able to subconsciously like tap into or just observe that from a very young age, like around us. So yeah.
yeah. I think you're right. I think humans would think of the world in stories, and that's how we understand the world. So
Yeah.
that's why they're so powerful. If you do them well.
Yeah.
I mean, just to talk a bit more technically, I mean, it's written in the close third person. It's all written
Yeah.
from Sigurd's point of view because he doesn't know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
He's been told what's going on in the world, but
Hmm.
the world is largely an unknown to him. So I didn't want to have much from anyone else's perspective in that. It's all from his perspective as he encounters people and events and creatures, that he slowly makes sense of what he discovers, really. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't have worked as an omniscient narrator or anything. It had to be either first person or third person,
Yeah.
close third person, which is what it is. So,
Yeah. And then, so I mean, have you read like any other stories like on Ankara Circle?
um, do you know, I've been so busy of late. I have not, and
Yeah.
I'm apologise for that. I will do that. Like I said, literally this week finished my MA and finished a
Yeah.
novel I was writing. So
Yeah.
it's been
Oh.
it's been a
Yeah.
bit crazy, but now I can relax a bit. So I'm looking forward to reading some
Yeah.
of those,
When you
especially the other prize
Yeah.
winner.
Yeah, that was a good story. That was a good story too. Um, like when you get the chance to, I know currently right now the website's kind of still randomized from like the contest, but we have like some stuff in the works to start, rebuilding it and making it more user friendly and with a better reading experience. So that's stuff
Cool.
I'm really like excited to release when you know we're done
Oh
with it.
well,
Yeah, it's gonna be really beautiful.
great
Um,
stuff.
yeah. Um,
Why is it called Ankara out of interest?
yeah. I founded it with my brother B. He's also an engineer and he's also a writer. And when we kind of like just we talk about stories a lot. We talk about like life and philosophy and a lot of things and our culture. And we started this because we didn't really see the space for a lot of like writers from like our background, that weren't either like really like published like authors or like bloggers, and we wanted to have that space for really serious and like creative writing, um, and a place that writers can grow and learn, and readers can also find like really amazing and beautiful stories. So
Mm-hmm.
we started like Ankara Circle, and the name Ankara comes from Ankara is the fabric in
Oh, is
like,
it?
yeah, it's a type of fabric, and that's why we named it Ankara, because we also believe like stories are like fabric, the
Yeah,
fabric
yeah,
of culture, fabric of like reality. So it kind of like ties
yeah. Okay,
into that belief. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay. Sorry, you're asking me questions.
no, I mean that's amazing. I think because we started a lot on social media and stuff. You know, I think it's the first time like I've vocalized, why exactly we're doing what we're doing and what it means to us. So, and
Right.
that stuff we'll be working on like through conversations like this, with other writers, with ourselves too. We hope to like share more of like our world with people too. So we're excited
I,
about that.
the idea of writing as fabric rather than as music is a good one as well. I like that metaphor.
Yeah.
I mean, I've written other stories that based around a giant tapestry, a sort of.
Yeah. Aha.
Semi-magical tapestry which
Yeah.
depicts the world or the worlds, and that,
Yeah.
that's that idea of weaving different strands and getting different
Hmm.
pictures coming out is a good metaphor for what you do as a fiction writer, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, what's the name of that story? I think that's something I'd like to go check out.
That is called. Isn't it sad? I can't remember what it's called. Oh, I have written quite a few. I can't remember what it's called. It's got a fairly obvious name, but I
Yeah.
can't think what it's called right now. I'll happily send you a link to it if you like.
Okay. Yeah. I'd like that. I'd like that.
Um, yeah, I can't remember. It's not bad.
I mean, it shows like the amount of experience you have. I feel like a lot of musicians too probably forget songs they've like sang when you've done like a lot. So
It's very strange. Sometimes, I mean, I've been writing for quite a while now, but sometimes I go back and read something and I think, God, this is without blowing my own trumpet. I think, oh, that's really good. Who wrote that? God, I wrote that.
yeah,
I didn't know I could write something like
yeah,
that good. But it's different. Reading and writing are completely different things. So
yeah.
when you go back to it as a reader, it's a different experience. So,
It's
yeah, that is quite a strange experience. What is that story called? I can't remember. I'm just looking at my list.
yeah. So whenever you find the story, please like email it. I'd like to like read it.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
yeah. So
I will do. I'll do that.
so I think this like brings us to like the end of our interview. So once again, this is like Simon, the author of The Clockwork King. You can read it on Ankara Circle. It's a really, really, really amazing story. I definitely recommend it. This is Paul from Ankara Circle, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank
All
you.
right.